Imagine, just for a second, that you are carrying the weight of an entire empire on your shoulders.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, you have absolute unchecked power. You command these massive armies that stretch across continents. You control vast economies, and you literally dictate the fates of millions of people.
Right. Your word is law.
Exactly. And yet, amid all of that chaos and violence and just, unparalleled authority, what are you doing in the quiet, isolated moments of your evening?
Probably not what most people would think.
Right.
Yeah.
You are desperately leaving yourself sticky notes on how to be a decent human being.
It is, it's honestly a staggering image to really sit with.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the most powerful person on the planet at that time, an individual who could execute enemies with the literal nod.
Or siphon the wealth of whole nations.
Exactly. And he's using his private time not to scheme against rivals or, gloat about his conquest, but to essentially scold himself.
Just sitting in a tent.
Yeah. Sitting in a tent on a military frontier, writing to himself, trying to demand that his own mind become kinder, more patient, and less egotistical.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're exploring a comprehensive summary of what is arguably the most unique psychological document in human history.
Without a doubt.
We are looking at a 19-year scrapbook of private, agonizingly honest thoughts. We're talking about the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius.
A fascinating text.
Truly. Now, to give you some context on our source material today, the original text is roughly 50,000 words. And as our summary points out, it is absolutely not some neatly structured, polished manuscript.
Right, it was never meant for publication.
Never. There's no chapter 1, chapter 2. It's repetitive. It's wildly unstructured. It is quite literally a man writing down ideas, rebuking himself, and refining his internal rules over nearly 2 decades of a very stressful life.
Which is, that's what makes the work our source has done here so valuable. The text we're diving into today has distilled those 50,000 words of raw, unedited thoughts down to about 4,000 words.
Just extracting the gold.
Exactly, capturing 22 core principles. And that distillation is vital for our mission today because, we are not reading a science textbook here.
Right.
We aren't doing a timeline of the Roman Empire or looking for an empirical explanation of how the physical world operates. Instead, we are extracting a series of highly practical mental techniques.
The summary specifically calls them mental crutches.
Yes, mental crutches. These are psychological tools designed to help you, the listener, navigate an incredibly chaotic modern world and actually live a more tranquil, fulfilling life.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer relatable nature of this is wild to me.
Oh, it really is.
Like, the Empire stuff is historical dressing, but underneath it, here is a guy struggling with the exact same annoyances, the exact same creeping anxieties, and the exact same petty interpersonal drama that you and I deal with every single day.
Right, he's worried about getting out of bed in the morning.
Yes, and he's annoyed by people who talk too much.
We've all been there.
It's just so human. And this deep dive is going to serve as a tailored shortcut to that exact same wisdom he used to cope. But to really understand how to interact with an unpredictable, often deeply frustrating world, we have to start where he started.
Which is the internal landscape.
Right. The realization that to deal with the outside, we first have to examine the only thing we actually have any direct control over, our own interpretation of that outside world.
That really is the bedrock of his entire worldview. Before you can manage an empire or, your career or your family, you have to manage the apparatus that perceives those things.
The mind itself.
Exactly. Our source introduces this concept with a quote that Marcus actually borrowed from a Cynic philosopher. The quote is just brilliant in its simplicity. Everything is interpretation.
Everything is interpretation.
Right. Now, the text makes a crucial clarification right away. Marcus isn't being delusional here.
He knows the physical world exists.
Yes. He recognizes that this is not literally physically true in an objective sense.
Yeah.
Like if a rock falls on your foot, gravity, mass, and the crushing of bone are objectively real.
It's not a hallucination. You're in pain.
It's very real. But as a psychological framework, as a mental crutch, everything's interpretation is an incredibly powerful mechanism for reclaiming your agency.
It almost sounds like a cognitive filter you install in your brain. It makes me think of putting on a pair of tinted glasses.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Like if you put on red tinted glasses, the whole world looks red. Your perception dictates your reality. So if I'm walking to the subway and it starts pouring rain, the physical reality is just moisture falling from the sky.
Right, just atmospheric condensation.
Exactly. But my brain immediately kicks in and adds a narrative to it. I start thinking, this is awful. My shoes are ruined. My day is ruined. Why does this always happen to me?
The classic downward spiral.
Right. The misery isn't actually in the rain. The misery is entirely in the narrative my brain just glued onto the rain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the source actually uses that exact meteorological example. The rain itself is entirely neutral.
Completely neutral.
You have a distinct choice in the cognitive step that follows the physical sensation.
Yeah.
You can choose to be angry. You can focus your attention on the discomfort of cold water on your clothes. And you can let that sensory input dictate your emotional state for the next 12 hours.
Which most of us do.
Right. On autopilot, we do. Or through a deliberate act of will, you can choose a completely different interpretation. You can pivot to feeling profound gratitude that you are alive at all.
Wow.
That you're a complex biological organism actually capable of feeling such vivid sensations. You can marvel at the water cycle.
I mean, the physical rain is identical in both scenarios.
Yes. The suffering, however, is optional. It is entirely a product of the interpretation.
So if I'm understanding the mechanics of this mental crutch, by adopting it, I'm basically building a firewall in my brain.
A cognitive firewall, yeah.
It allows me to intercept a troublesome impression, like a rude comment from a coworker or a delayed flight pause, strip away the negative emotional narrative, and just view it as a neutral data point.
You're filtering out the judgment.
Right. It seems like the goal is to easily repel anything unsuitable so you can instantly return to a baseline of tranquility. I think the core rule the summary identifies here is, well, it says, choose not to feel harmed, and you haven't been.
That is the exact phrase. And it represents a radical shift in where you place your locus of control.
Choose not to feel harmed, and you haven't been.
If we dig into why that works, it's because external events cannot actually touch the soul or, the rational mind. They exist entirely outside of us.
Or just things happening in a room.
Exactly. The only thing that touches your inner peace is your own judgment about those events. The source points out a fascinating psychological mechanism here. It says, you are what you continually think.
Like your mind adapts to your thoughts.
Literally. Your mind takes the shape of what you frequently hold in thought. The human spirit, as the text translates it, is colored by such impressions.
Colored by them, like dropping food coloring into a glass of water.
Perfect way to picture it.
So if I constantly frame my daily interactions negative, like if I assume everyone driving slow in front of me is an idiot, or every typo an employee makes is a personal insult to me, my mind just takes on a permanent, dark, cynical shape.
Yes.
I am literally training my brain to be miserable.
Precisely. You are carving deep neural pathways of outrage and victimization. So the first step is gaining control over that coloring process.
Right, changing the dye.
But the source takes this framework a step further, and this is where it gets very demanding. It introduces this constant underlying battle between the rational mind and the physical body.
The mind versus the meat suit.
Exactly. It states that your rational faculty, your ability to apply reason, is the specific evolutionary advantage you have over other animals. And when the text talks about following nature, it doesn't mean running off into the woods to act like a wild animal. It actually means the exact opposite.
Interesting.
It means recognizing this unique human advantage of reason and utilizing it. The mind is supposed to sit in a position of absolute superiority over the body and its raw sensations.
So it's about recognizing that we have these two completely different operating systems.
Right.
We have the biological animal system that just wants comfort, food, sleep, and to avoid pain at all costs. And then we have the higher level rational system that knows what our long-term goals and our moral duties actually are.
That's the tension we all feel.
Because deep down, I think we all know what we should be doing. We have that inner voice telling us to go to the gym or to be patient with our kids or to finish the project.
But then we just
don't do it.
Right. And the source argues that failure happens because we let the lower operating system hijack the controls. Whenever you determine to do something and you fail, it is almost always because your physical body threw a tantrum and gave you an excuse.
It's the ultimate internal sabotage.
It really is. The summary specifically lists these bodily sensations that try to usurp our reason. It lists pain, drowsiness, fever, and loss of appetite.
The usual suspects.
The instruction is that we cannot allow these physical states to alter our moral behavior or our fundamental character. When we are bothered by them, the text says we need to catch ourselves and say, I am giving in to pain, or I am letting fatigue dictate my values.
We have to mentally flag the sabotage as it's happening.
Exactly. You have to call it out.
Okay, let's play this out in a real scenario because I think there's a huge risk of misinterpreting this.
Sure, let's hear it.
If I wake up and I have a literal fever, like my temperature is 102, my joints ache, I'm legitimately sick, is this philosophy telling me I'm supposed to just ignore the biological reality, pretend I'm fine, and go into the office?
Oh, I see where you're going.
Because applying that to modern life just sounds like a blueprint for toxic productivity or burning yourself out or, frankly, just infecting your coworkers.
That is a very important distinction to clarify. And if we look closely at the underlying logic of the source, it resolves this tension completely.
How so?
It is not advocating for medical negligence or reckless endangerment of your health.
Yeah.
Treating a fever, resting to heal, those are rational actions taken by the mind to maintain the body.
Okay, so rest is logical.
Yes. What it is warning against is letting the mind become a slave to the fever.
Oh. It's like letting the check engine light drive the car.
That is a perfect analogy, yes.
Like the body's pain or tiredness is just a dashboard indicator. It's vital information. You need to know the engine is overheating so you can pull over.
Right. You don't just ignore the light.
But if you let the glowing red indicator actually take over the steering wheel, you're going to crash. The rational mind has to remain the driver, deciding how to respond to the light.
Exactly. The issue is entirely about the locus of control. If you give in to those physical sensations to the point where they start dictating your moral behavior.
Like if I'm tired, so I yell at someone.
Yes, if being tired makes you cruelly snap at your partner, or if having a headache makes you abandon a promise you made to a friend in need, then you have surrendered your rational advantage.
You've let the check engine light drive the car.
You have.
Yeah.
Giving in entirely, letting your moods be dictated by your blood sugar or your fatigue, makes the mind the slave of the body. And the source argues that this inversion of the natural order leads to endless suffering.
It's exhausting just thinking about living like that.
It is. The goal is mastering the mind so it can maintain its integrity regardless of what the body is feeling. It's only by maintaining that control that you can consistently act virtuously. And it's only by acting virtuously that you reach what the ancients called eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia, that's one of those heavy philosophical terms. But it doesn't just mean happiness in the modern sense, right? Like eating a great slice of pizza and feeling a rush of dopamine.
Far deeper than pizza.
Right.
Eudaimonia translates closer to human flourishing or fulfilling your ultimate potential as a rational being. It's this profound, unshakable tranquility that comes from knowing you are living in alignment with your highest principles, regardless of external circumstances.
The inner citadel.
Exactly. It's an inner citadel that remains peaceful, even if there's a massive storm raging outside.
I love that concept of the inner citadel. It's about not letting the drowsiness make you a cruel person or not letting the hunger make you a selfish person.
Right.
And if you can actually pull this off, the source highlights an incredibly bold, almost shocking promise.
Oh, the 10-day thing?
Yes. It claims that if you return to your principles and you establish this worship of reason, the difference in how you are perceived will be night and day. Specifically, it says that within 10 days, you will appear as a god to those who currently see you as a beast or a baboon.
A beast or a baboon. It's striking, almost humorous imagery.
It's pretty funny.
But it highlights a serious point about human behavior. When we are constantly reacting to every physical impulse, snapping when we're hungry, complaining when we're hot, lashing out when we're tired, we appear chaotic.
We're just flailing around.
We look like animals simply reacting to stimuli. To transform from that reactive baboon-like state into something resembling a god in the eyes of others, meaning someone who is perfectly tranquil, fiercely rational, and entirely steadfast under pressure, well, that requires a monumental, deliberate shift in how you process reality.
So how do we actually execute that 10-day transformation? Because looking around at the modern world, I definitely want to be a god of tranquility and not a baboon of reactivity.
And we'll all do.
But breaking those reactive habits seems impossibly hard.
The mechanics of this transformation, according to the text, require an exhausting level of constant, unrelenting mindfulness.
Unrelenting.
Yes, it means completely and utterly eliminating the autopilot mode of living. Think about how much of our day is spent sleepwalking.
Oh, tons of it. Scrolling on our phones.
Right? We scroll without thinking. We give standard generic replies to questions. We eat without even tasting the food. The text demands an end to that. It states categorically, no random actions.
Not at all.
None. Nothing that is not based on underlying principles. You cannot allow your mind to wander without a deliberate purpose. You have to observe your own mind critically, as if you were observing a stranger's mind.
That is an intense mental exercise. It requires stepping outside of yourself and interrogating your own thoughts in real time, like while they are actively happening.
Yes, catching them in the act.
So if I'm sitting in traffic and I feel the rage bubbling up because someone just cut me off, I have to catch the emotion before it becomes an action.
Exactly. The text gives us specific questions we need to ask ourselves in every single case.
What are they?
You ask, to what are you currently employing your mind? What sort of soul are you displaying right now? Are you acting like a child throwing a tantrum? Are you acting like a parent trying to control things you can't? Are you acting like a dumb animal? What is actually causing you to act this way?
Wow. It is a ruthless self-interrogation. You are essentially putting your own impulses on the witness stand and just cross-examining them.
That's a great way to put it. But the promise backing up this exhausting effort is massive. If you can control your actions and think systematically rather than randomly, you will secure an untroubled life.
Guaranteed.
According to Marcus, yes. Conversely, if you do not observe the movements of your own mind, you're guaranteed to be unhappy. The peace you are desperately searching for out in the world can actually be found at any time, instantly, simply by retreating into your own disciplined mind.
Which sounds amazing.
It does, however. The source adds a vital caveat to this. You retreat into yourself briefly. This is a mechanism to recharge and recenter, not an excuse to become a hermit and abandon society.
Which makes perfect sense because recognizing that we have to live in the world bridges us into what is easily the next massive challenge.
Dealing with everyone else.
Right. You can do all this incredible internal work. You can interrogate your thoughts, you can put the check engine light of your body in its proper place, and you can build this beautiful, fortified inner citadel of peace.
Everything is great inside.
But eventually, you have to open the front door. You have to step outside, go to work, interact with your family, and, heaven forbid, navigate the internet.
The ultimate test.
Seriously, you inevitably have to collide with other people, millions of whom have absolutely not done this internal work and whose minds are completely out of control.
And that collision is where the theoretical philosophy is brutally tested by reality.
Yeah.
Because we are, at our core, social animals. The text emphasizes this repeatedly. Humanity is born for cooperation.
Like bees in a hive.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are literally constituted for one another, like the upper and lower rows of teeth. We are meant to work together. Because of that fundamental biological and social reality, you cannot allow yourself to become entirely misanthropic.
You can't just hate everybody.
No. Yeah. You cannot become perpetually angry with those around you. You cannot fall into hatred, and you cannot throw up your hands and give up trying to make a positive difference in society, no matter how frustrating people can be.
But let's be entirely realistic here. Receiving bad treatment, facing unfair criticism, or just dealing with the general unkindness of the public is incredibly draining.
It's exhausting.
Our natural instinct is to get defensive or to react with anger to protect our ego. But the source offers this really stark, almost binary logic tree for dealing with criticism or bad treatment.
I love this part.
It argues that when someone criticizes you or treats you poorly, there are really only two possibilities. Either they are right or they are wrong.
Simple as that.
Right. If they are right, if you actually made a mistake or have a flaw, then you have absolutely no logical right to complain. You should accept the feedback with gratitude and fix the issue.
Because they're helping you.
Exactly. But if they are wrong, then they are simply misguided. They are operating on bad data. They have made a mistake.
If we really integrate that logic tree into our daily interactions, it completely neutralizes the instinct for outrage.
It does.
Think about how liberating that is. If they made a mistake because they're operating on flawed logic or bad information, then you shouldn't feel rage. You should feel pity.
Pity, because they're just confused.
Right. You should remind yourself of the countless times you've been absolutely certain of something, only to realize later you were completely wrong. The text advises that you should, by all means, attempt to point out where they've gone wrong. But the manner in which you do it is critical.
You can't just dunk on them.
Exactly. You must correct them affectionately, not meanly, not with a dripping sense of sarcasm or hatred in your heart, and absolutely not performatively to impress onlookers or score points on social media.
Which is what everyone does now.
Yes. Instead, you speak directly to them with genuine care for their well-being.
That is such a high bar, to look at someone who is actively insulting you and view them essentially as someone stumbling around in the dark.
It requires immense discipline.
But what happens when that empathetic approach just fundamentally bounces off? Because we've all been in situations where you try to be reasonable, you try to correct someone affectionately, and they just double down.
Oh, yeah.
They become more aggressive, more stubborn, and more unkind.
When reason fails, you look to the specific tools that nature provided us to handle these situations. The text frames it almost like an apothecary of virtues.
Like a pharmacy.
Right. It asks, what specific quality has nature given us to counter this specific defect in another person? As the direct antidote to unkindness, nature gave us kindness.
Fighting fire with water.
Exactly. The instruction is not to match their aggression, but to deploy kindness systematically and observe the results. The source makes a profound psychological observation here. Very few people can continually act unkindly to you if you persistently, genuinely show continued kindness to them. It eventually breaks their pattern.
No matter what anyone else says or does, my task is to be good. That is the internal mantra.
You're responsible for your own output.
Right. I am responsible for my output, not their input. But I have to push back here with a much darker scenario.
Okay, let's hear it.
What if we aren't just talking about someone who is mistaken or having a bad day or being a bit of a jerk? What if you are dealing with someone who is genuinely toxic, chronically untrustworthy, or frankly, operating with malicious, evil intent?
The con artists of the world.
Right. Does this framework expect me to just keep smiling and being kind to a con artist?
The source does not shy away from the darker realities of human nature. It fully acknowledges that untrustworthy, manipulative, and genuinely bad people exist in the world.
Okay, good.
But its perspective on how to handle them and where the responsibility lies is uncompromisingly internal. It states that if you have mistakenly trusted a known untrustworthy person, you must immediately turn the reproach upon yourself.
Ouch.
The fault is not theirs for acting according to their nature. The fault is yours for ignoring it.
That is taking extreme ownership to a level that might make a lot of people uncomfortable.
Without a doubt.
Because if someone lies to me and manipulates me, my natural instinct is to demand justice and focus all my energy on how terrible they are. But this framework says, no, you were fooled. You gave them your trust without proper evidence. Blame yourself.
It's about maintaining realistic expectations of the world. Because expecting not to encounter manipulative or bad people during your life is simply foolish.
It's statistically impossible.
Exactly. So when you do meet one, instead of being shocked and shattered, you should mentally categorize the event. You say to yourself, I've encountered one of them. This is a known variable in human society. It is to be expected from time to time.
One of those.
Yes. By normalizing their existence, you prevent their actions from shattering your internal tranquility. Then you remind yourself of the ultimate defensive posture. Any evil that individuals attempt to do to you only truly harms your soul if you choose to do evil in return.
So what does this all mean?
It means your sole job is to remain good and not allow their corruption to alter your fundamental character.
That completely flips the power dynamic in any conflict. If someone lies to me or cheats me and my immediate reaction is to lie back or scheme for revenge, I am basically handing them the remote control to my brain.
You're letting them drive.
I'm letting their bad behavior dictate my actions. Refusing to match their energy is the only way to actually keep my autonomy. It means the ultimate revenge, the absolute noblest kind of retribution you can enact upon an enemy, is simply refusing to become like them.
Yes.
If they drag you down to their level, they've won. They've corrupted your inner citadel.
And this intense focus on avoiding corruption ties directly into how Marcus Aurelius viewed the macro structures of society, power, and governance.
Right, because he was in charge of all of it.
Exactly. The source highlights a deeply historical and philosophical point here that is incredibly rare for someone in his position. Marcus conceived, and he explicitly notes in his meditations, that he refined this concept from his brother, of a society based on equal laws.
Equal laws.
He envisioned a state governed by equality of status and of speech, and of rulers who respect the liberty of their subjects above all other considerations.
Which is just mind-blowing when you remember who is writing this.
Right, he's the emperor.
This isn't a modern democratic theorist. This is an absolute Roman emperor, a man who could literally declare himself a living god and have statues built in his honor. Yet he recognized intimately that power corrupts the soul.
He saw it firsthand.
The text shows him constantly warning himself about the malice, the cunning, and the deep hypocrisy that absolute power inevitably produces. He even specifically critiques his own social class, mentioning the peculiar ruthlessness often displayed by people from good families or high birth.
He was hyper-aware of the insidious traps of his own environment. He's actively writing notes to himself, essentially screaming into his own journal, warning himself to resist becoming despotic.
What does he say?
He writes this incredible line: "Take care not to be transformed into a Caesar, not to be dyed with this dye."
Died at this die.
That metaphor of the dye is profoundly insightful. Power, privilege, and the constant sycophancy of the people around you act like a vat of dye. If you swim in it long enough, it seeps into the very fabric of who you are. It changes your fundamental color.
It stains you.
Exactly. He is commanding himself to fight daily, to remain the person that his philosophical training is trying to make him, rather than the tyrant the system wants him to be.
It's just wild to picture the man who is literally the Caesar, desperately writing in the flickering candlelight of a war tent, "Don't become a Caesar."
It's a daily battle.
It goes to show that if any of us are to treat others as equals and resist the corruption that comes with even minor amounts of power or status in our own lives, whether that's a promotion at work or gaining a following online, we have to fundamentally dismantle our own ego.
We have to tear it down.
We have to violently strip away our obsession with fame, with looking good to the public, and with material superficiality.
Which brings us to one of the most fascinating psychological paradoxes the source points out regarding our ego.
Okay, what is it?
It notes that it never ceases to amaze how we all love ourselves far more than we love other people, and yet we care infinitely more about their opinions of us than we care about our own opinion of ourselves.
Oh, man. That observation hits uncomfortably close to home.
Doesn't it?
We are completely obsessed with our own internal narrative, our own comfort, our own goals. But the second we step out the door or the second we post something online, we will twist ourselves into knots of anxiety, worrying about what a total stranger, someone we will never even meet, thinks of us.
It's entirely illogical.
The text makes it clear that pointing this out isn't an exhortation to become arrogant or antisocial, though, right?
No, not at all.
It's a vital reminder to do what you know is logically and morally best, regardless of the peanut gallery's reaction. You know what you're about. You know the rigorous reasons behind your actions. You don't need to exhaust yourself explaining your soul to everyone you meet.
And the text highlights the sheer absurdity of our behavior when we chase that approval. It asks us to really look at the people whose praise we are desperately seeking.
Who are they really?
Exactly. How often do we fawn over, curate our images for, and seek validation from people we don't even personally respect?
Oh, all the time.
We are literally seeking the praise of those whose character we might find worthy of contempt. To counter this exhausting cycle, the text suggests a very practical mental crutch. Zoom out.
Big picture.
Contemplate what difference their praise really makes in the vast expanse of time. Consider the total insignificance of a good reputation in the grand scheme of a universe that will eventually forget all of us. Fame, especially in a world as chaotic and fleeting as this, is absolutely mathematically worthless.
If you truly internalize that fame and public opinion are worthless, the only logical conclusion is to drop the act.
Just stop pretending.
Just be honest, be straightforward, stop prancing about trying to curate a personal brand, stop putting on airs or trying to portray yourself as wealthy or smarter or more important than you are. Abstain from manipulative rhetoric, from pandering to the crowd, and from compromising your values just to curry favor.
It's about finding freedom in authenticity.
But, and this is a massive caveat that I want to explore, the text is very careful to state that ignoring the uninformed opinions of the crowd does not mean you should become stubborn, dogmatic, or closed-minded.
Exactly. Refusing to pander is not the same as refusing to learn. Being radically open to correction is vital to this entire system.
Yeah.
The text argues forcefully that being corrected when you are wrong is always better than remaining trapped in self-deceit.
This makes me think of how we treat technology versus how we treat our own egos.
How do you mean?
Well, if Apple or Google releases a software update for your phone because they found a security bug, you don't view that update as a personal insult.
Right, you don't get mad at the phone.
You don't feel defeated or coerced by the engineers. You just hit update because it's new code based on new evidence that makes the system run better. But when someone points out a bug in our personal logic, our ego treats it like a physical attack. We defend the bug.
That is an excellent way to frame it. Defending the bug, updating your internal software shouldn't feel like a defeat.
It's an upgrade.
The source specifically frames this process of changing your mind as a profound act of agency. It says that changing your mind, if the evidence turns against your previous position, is still a free and noble action on your part.
Because you chose to do it.
It is an act of your own will, your own critical reasoning, and your own mind choosing truth over comfort. The only condition Marcus places on this is the reason for the change. You must change your mind strictly based on new evidence, logic, or justice.
Not just to fit in.
Never. You never change your mind simply because of peer pressure, social discomfort, or a desire to ingratiate yourself with a powerful group.
You change because it's true, not because it's popular.
Precisely.
And to be able to accurately discern what is true, you have to practice seeing the world and the objects in it for what they truly are, stripped of their marketing. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Stripping away exercise.
Yes. This is the part of the deep dive that I found most immediately applicable. The source shares this incredibly vivid mental trick for dismantling our ego and our obsession with shiny, expensive things. It's the practice of forcibly stripping objects of their societal prestige.
It is a profound psychological tool for combating consumerism and envy.
It really is.
We inherently assign immense, almost magical value to things based entirely on societal constructs and marketing. Marcus advises using your rational mind to aggressively strip away those constructs until you are left staring at the raw, unimpressive reality of the physical object.
The examples in the text are striking.
Tell me about it. Take expensive wine, something people covet, spend fortunes on, and brag about in high society. What is it, actually?
Just grape juice.
At its core, biological reality, it is just fancy, fermented grape juice. It's crushed fruit.
And the most famous example from the text is how he views the purple robes worn by the emperor himself.
Oh, this one is brutal.
Think about what a purple robe meant in Rome. It was the ultimate exclusive symbol of absolute power, unfathomable wealth, and divine status. But how does Marcus Aurelius, the man wearing them, describe them to himself?
He says they are just sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish.
When you describe the ultimate symbol of power as bloody sheep hair, it sounds gross.
It sounds primitive, not glorious.
It completely shatters the illusion of prestige. If we apply that today, think about a luxury sports car. It's not a status symbol. It's just molded plastic, mined lithium, steel, and probably a lot of consumer debt.
Very true.
A $50,000 designer watch is just gears and springs that keep the exact same time as the microwave in your kitchen.
It's a radical demystification of the world. And this practice of stripping away illusions applies not just to material goods, but to human behavior and the very people we stress ourselves out trying to impress.
Oh, wow. How so?
The text suggests taking the same analytical tool and imagining someone's soul stripped completely bare of their title, their wealth, and their social standing.
Just naked reality.
Examine their ruling principles. Look closely at what evokes their love, what triggers their admiration, and what feeds their vanity. When you strip away the CEO title or the millions of followers and see their soul naked, you often realize how deeply flawed and unhappy they are.
That changes everything.
You realize their disdain cannot actually harm anyone of substance, and their praise cannot truly help anyone.
It asks this piercing, uncomfortable question. Do you really wish to be praised by a man who curses himself 3 times every hour?
Exactly.
Do you really wish to please a man who doesn't even please himself? When you look at the sort of person who's throwing insults at you online, or the toxic boss who is trying to make you feel small, and you strip away their power, you realize they're usually miserable.
Like they're suffering.
You don't need to strain your own soul to impress them. Though, importantly, the text immediately adds a safeguard to this exercise. You should still treat them well, because they're still a human being.
Right. You don't strip them of their humanity, just their false prestige.
Exactly. Always speak the truth as you logically see it, but deliver it with kindness and humility. So, by adopting these crutches, by stripping away the illusions of prestige, the value of fame, and the weight of the opinions of troubled people, we are finally left facing raw, unfiltered reality.
And let's be honest, raw reality is rarely a smooth, paved, scenic road.
Raw reality is often brutal. It is full of adversity, unexpected obstacles, and things going spectacularly painfully wrong. Which brings us to the ultimate practical question of this framework. How do we actually take action when the world throws massive impediments directly in our path?
The source provides what is arguably the most resilient framework for action ever devised. It states that, frequently in life, the obstacle itself becomes the way forward.
The obstacle becomes the way.
When something objectively bad or disruptive happens, the mental crutch is to train your immediate internal response to simply say, good.
Just good?
Yes. You then immediately ask your rational mind, what new, unseen opportunities does this specific impediment open up?
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate and push back heavily here.
I figured you would. Go ahead.
Because if I am driving to a vital career-making meeting and my car's transmission blows up on the highway, standing on the side of the road in the exhaust fumes saying good sounds utterly delusional.
It sounds crazy.
It sounds like toxic positivity. I didn't want my car to break down. It is objectively a bad event that has severely disrupted my life and my goals.
It is the most natural human reaction in the world to feel that way. But the source anticipates this exact friction between our desires and reality.
How does it resolve it?
It acknowledges that this is very much a mental crutch, a deliberately engineered perspective to keep you moving. It explicitly clarifies this. You wouldn't break your own car. If you had wanted it broken, you would have taken a sledgehammer to it in your driveway.
Right.
But the undeniable, immutable reality of the present moment is that the car is broken. That is the fact. Screaming at the steering wheel, cursing the universe, or complaining about your luck changes absolutely nothing about the transmission.
It doesn't fix the car.
Instead, the rational mind must immediately adapt and convert the impediment to its own purposes.
The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So the car breaks down. Instead of raging and spiking your cortisol, you accept the reality and ask, what good can come from this specific new reality?
Exactly. Find the pivot.
Maybe you have a profound conversation with the tow truck driver that completely shifts your perspective on a problem you've been having. Maybe being forced to miss that specific meeting actually saves you from tying your career to a terrible, toxic client. You stop mourning the path that was blocked and immediately start looking for the new possibility that just opened up.
Precisely. The source actually references a perfect modern embodiment of this ancient mindset.
Oh, yeah.
It notes there's a video clip from the former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink, linked in the summary's description, that perfectly summarizes this concept of saying good to adversity.
Oh, I've seen that.
When a mission gets canceled, good, we can focus on training. When the gear breaks, good, we learn to operate without it. It's not delusion. It's a highly aggressive psychological pivot.
It keeps you moving.
It's a mental habit that allows you to maintain your momentum and remain internally balanced even when deeply upsetting things occur.
Because adversity isn't a glitch in the system, it is the system. The text points out that the universe is entirely indifferent to your personal comfort.
It doesn't care about your plans?
It is going to throw things at you that will completely rock your world. Difficulties, professional setbacks, personal tragedies, illness. These aren't anomalies that only happen to unlucky people. Experiencing these things is literally part of the job description of being a living human being.
And understanding that leads to a crucial, counterintuitive distinction in how we should approach our hopes, our anxieties, and even our prayers.
Okay, this part was wild.
Since these chaotic external events are entirely in the hands of fate, physics, or the broader universe, the text argues forcefully that you should not hope and pray for bad things not to occur.
That feels so entirely backwards to how we are raised. Every instinct we have is to pray for safety, to pray for the bad things, to stay far away from us and our families.
But consider the mechanics of doing that. By praying for external events to perfectly align with your desires, you are putting all of your psychological focus and emotional well-being on variables entirely outside of your control.
You're setting yourself up to fail.
You are setting yourself up for despair when the universe inevitably doesn't comply. Instead, the source says you should radically shift your focus inward. You should hope and pray that you forge the strength of character required to endure those bad things when they inevitably do happen.
So upgrade the armor, don't ask for no arrows.
Exactly. Pray for the internal gift to fear none of these things, to desire none of them with unhealthy attachment, and to sorrow for none of them. Focus entirely on upgrading your own armor to endure all onslaughts.
There is this beautiful Stoic imagery the source uses to illustrate this concept. It says we should strive to be like the headland, the rocky cliff against which the waves of the ocean continually break.
The rock doesn't ask the ocean to calm down.
It just stands firm, and by its very nature, it tames the fury of the water boiling around it. You apply that to your life by fundamentally changing your internal narrative. When disaster strikes, you refuse to say, "It's unfortunate this happened to me."
You reframe it instantly.
Right. "It's fortunate this happened to me, and I remained uncrushed and unharmed by it." You turn the hardship into a crucible, a necessary test designed to temper your character and make you stronger.
And to help maintain that resilient posture, it helps to maintain a vast historical sense of proportion.
The big picture again.
When we suffer, our ego tells us that our pain is entirely unique. But the source reminds us that, for the most part, everything you are experiencing has happened millions of times before. The universe is in a state of constant swirling flux. But regarding the human experience, there is truly nothing new under the sun.
I found this part of the text strangely comforting, even if it borders on being a bit bleak. It lists these deeply personal, shattering traumas. Your partner cheats on you, your closest friend betrays your trust, you get unfairly passed over for a promotion you work years for.
These are devastating moments.
When those things happen to you, it feels like the sky is falling. It feels like an unprecedented apocalypse. But the text gently taps you on the shoulder and reminds you that humanity has been experiencing these exact same emotional gut punches since the dawn of time.
Which raises an incredibly important grounding question that you need to ask yourself in those acute moments of despair.
What's the question?
The text asks, think of all the millions of people who experienced these exact same betrayals and setbacks centuries before you. The people who felt that exact same shock, who screamed in outrage, who let resentment consume their entire lives. Where are they now?
They are nowhere. They are dust. Their outrage didn't save them.
Exactly. They are gone, and the universe kept spinning. So the challenge is that what you want your brief flash of existence to look like? Do you want to waste your severely limited time wailing against the inevitable realities of human nature?
Definitely not.
Instead of trying to avoid these emotional assaults, you should treat them as raw material. When betrayal happens, concentrate on what you can build with it. Pay attention, maintain your bearing, and resolve to live up to your own high expectations. Because our business as humans is with things that actually matter, like character, resilience, and duty.
Which brings us to a fascinating metaphor about duty and cowardice. The source compares navigating life to being stationed at a post by a commanding officer or standing in your assigned spot as a gentleman of a jury.
You hold your ground.
Wherever you find yourself stationed in life, whether that's a parent, a low-level employee, or a leader, that is where you take your stand. You face the enemy, you face the daily grind, and you absolutely do not worry about the risk of death, failure, or humiliation. You care only about executing your duty.
It emphasizes that a person genuinely worth their salt doesn't obsess over the risk parameters. They concentrate their entire cognitive load on one simple binary. Is the action I am about to take right or wrong?
Just right or wrong.
Is my behavior in this moment that of a good, rational person or a bad, reactive one? It also redefines strength. We often think of anger or explosive passion as powerful.
We see it in movies all the time.
The text argues that anger, fits of passion, and bitter discontent are actually forms of profound weakness. There is nothing manly or strong about losing control and giving in to raw emotion.
True strength is remaining calm.
Real nerve and deep courage belong exclusively to the person who can maintain courtesy, kindness, and rational duty in the face of chaos.
You just do the job in front of you without whining. If you have the capability to do it, do it. If you hit a wall and can't do it, seek help from others without an ounce of ego or shame. But never, ever complain.
Not out loud and not inwardly.
And executing this duty is a matter of extreme urgency. We can't put off being a good person until things settle down at work because the clock is always relentlessly ticking.
The relentless passage of time and our inherent biological limits form a major recurring theme in this philosophy. A rational person deeply understands that life is shockingly short, incredibly fragile, and that death comes to us all, often without warning.
So the only logical time for virtuous action is right now.
Exactly right now.
This might be the ultimate, most aggressive anti-procrastination tool I've ever encountered. The text is brutal in its assessment of our delays. It says you suffer justly because you choose to be good tomorrow rather than today.
It's a stinging rebuke.
Think about how often we run that exact script. I'll start being patient with my spouse tomorrow. I'll start eating right on Monday. I'll focus on building my character next year when the kids are older or the mortgage is paid.
We constantly defer our own goodness to a hypothetical future that we are not guaranteed. To combat this deeply ingrained habit, the source offers one of the most extreme, jarring mental tricks we've discussed so far.
The memento mori trick.
Yes, it's a specific variation of memento mori, the practice of remembering that you will die. But it frames it in a highly specific, psychological way designed to shock you awake.
Okay.
It suggests sitting down and actively convincing yourself that the life you have lived up to this exact moment is already dead. You have died. The story is over.
Let's really walk through the mechanics of that because it's intense. I sit here and tell myself, I have died, the life I lived, all my past mistakes, all my old anxieties, they are completely over. The book is closed.
Yes, you visualize that finality, and then you wake up today, right now, And you view everything from this moment forward as a completely new, incredibly short, unexpected bonus life.
A bonus life.
You have been granted a reprieve. You take whatever tiny fragment of time is left to you, and you resolve to live it properly without the baggage of the dead past.
That immediately strips away so much petty anxiety.
It is designed to create an immediate, visceral sense of urgency and profound gratitude. You instantly stop living as if you had an endless bank account of years ahead of you. As the text advises, let death overshadow you while you are alive and able, so you have no choice but to be good right now.
And a crucial part of living this bonus life properly is learning to accept your actual realistic limits. I love this specific section of the source because it touches on something so universally relatable regarding the human experience of aging and ambition.
Oh, the youthful hopes part.
Yes. It notes that when we are young, we are fueled by boundless imagination. We genuinely imagine we are going to be Olympic athletes or world-renowned savants, or that we are going to completely disrupt and change the world with our brilliant discoveries.
Youth is defined by that feeling of limitless, untapped potential. But time passes and objective reality sets in. Math catches up with us. We don't all turn pro. We don't all become famous philosophers or billionaire innovators.
It's just a mathematical fact.
The text offers incredibly comforting, practical advice here. Abandoning those lofty youthful hopes shouldn't dishearten you in the slightest. What is truly disgraceful is for your soul to give up and become bitter while your physical body is still going strong.
Because even if you aren't going to be a billionaire or an Olympian, you can still achieve the things that actually matter to the human experience.
The true virtues.
You can still attain internal freedom, you can still achieve profound humility, you can serve others with grace, and you can live justly. The text uses a brilliant physical analogy to drive this home.
The height analogy.
Right. Just as you naturally accept the genetic limits placed on your physical height, like you don't spend your days crying because you can't magically wish yourself to be 6 inches taller. You must rationally accept the limits placed on your life, your circumstances, and your natural abilities.
It's about working with what you have.
Fearing a future you can't control or lamenting a past you didn't achieve does absolutely nothing but paralyze you and stop you from acting bravely with the tools you do have today.
And a major component of acting bravely today includes acknowledging upfront that you are not going to be perfect at any of this.
Oh, thank goodness it addresses that, because I'm sitting here listening to this massive list of rules. I have to constantly interrogate my mind. I have to ignore my body's complaints. I have to treat toxic enemies with kindness. I have to view my past life as dead. And I know for an absolute fact that I am going to mess this up by lunchtime tomorrow.
We all are.
I'm going to get stressed, I'm going to snap at someone in traffic, and I'm going to complain about being tired. The whole system feels impossible to maintain 24/7.
Which is exactly why the text's approach to failure is so vital. What's fascinating here is how incredibly forgiving and pragmatic the philosophy is on this exact point.
It is forgiving.
Highly. It doesn't demand unbroken perfection. It openly acknowledges that life is a chaotic obstacle course. No matter how wise you are or how much you practice, unpredictable circumstances will eventually jar you and throw you off balance.
You're going to trip.
When you inevitably fall off the wagon, when fatigue wins and you revert to your old reactive baboon ways, the explicit instruction is, do not beat yourself up, do not spiral into guilt, and absolutely do not call the whole day a write-off.
That is such a common trap. We make a mistake at 9 a.m. and we say, well, I got angry this morning and ruined my streak, so I guess I'm just going to be a grumpy baboon for the rest of the week. I'll try again on Monday.
Exactly. The text forbids that kind of self-indulgent defeatism. You don't allow yourself to feel exasperated, defeated, or despondent just because your days aren't packed with a flawless string of perfectly wise and moral actions.
So what do you do?
Instead, the philosophy is entirely about the recovery. The text says you must practice getting back on track. Make a point of centering yourself at once. Revert at once to your principles.
Just reset immediately.
The metric of success isn't never failing. It's how quickly you can catch the failure and pull yourself back. The more you practice pulling yourself back into alignment, the better grasp you will eventually have of the overall harmony.
You're just building the muscle of returning to sender.
You literally learn to celebrate the fact that you are behaving like a flawed human being, however imperfectly, and you fully embrace the daily practice of getting back up when you stumble.
That is so incredibly freeing. It frames this whole endeavor as a continuous practice, like going to the gym, rather than a final state of permanent, unbroken perfection.
That's exactly what it is.
And embracing those imperfections and limits is what clears the mental fog and allows us to finally appreciate what we actually have right in front of us. Which brings us to the final major theme of our source material: how we view wealth, the true nature of virtue, and the profound power of specific gratitude.
Let's start with how the text views material wealth, because it strikes a wonderfully pragmatic, nuanced balance that differs from some more ascetic philosophies.
It doesn't just say money is evil, right?
No, it states clearly that wealth in and of itself is fundamentally neutral. It is neither a good thing nor an evil thing. The term goods, which we often use to describe products or possessions, is actually a linguistic misnomer.
Right, because possessing too many things, or the wrong things, can actually make your life objectively worse. A fleet of expensive cars can bring you anxiety, maintenance bills, and fake friends, so they aren't inherently good.
They're just stuff.
The framework insists that the only true, unassailable goods in this world are your virtues, your courage, your justice, your wisdom. You have to learn to respect your own rational mind and prize that above all external possessions.
Because if you don't,
Because if you can't stop prizing external things, if your happiness is tied to your bank account or your house, you will never be free. You will always be a hostage to fortune. You will be perpetually envious of those who have more, jealous of those catching up to you, or terrified that the market will crash and take your stuff away.
that is the trap of craving. But, and this is where the balance of the philosophy truly shines, while those who endlessly crave wealth are clearly misguided, the text says so are those who completely despise it, performatively reject it, or feel crushing guilt in possessing it.
Wait, feeling guilty about wealth is bad.
If you feel intense guilt over your wealth, or if you constantly obsess over how much you hate money, it means money still have a massive emotional hold over your mind. It is still dictating your tranquility.
So if craving it makes you a slave and hating it makes you a slave, what is the actual middle ground? How are we supposed to interact with the modern economy?
The middle ground is absolute, unbothered neutrality.
Just neutrality.
The instruction is to learn to make use of wealth and comfort when fortune grants it to you, unapologetically and without an ounce of arrogance. Enjoy the nice house, enjoy the good food,
Just don't cling to it.
but simultaneously be absolutely internally prepared to let it all go at a moment's notice without shedding a tear. The mental crutch here is to treat what you don't have as non-existent. Don't pine for the yacht you can't afford. Then look at what you do have, the things you value most, and think about how much you would crave them if you suddenly lost them. Cultivate appreciation, but be incredibly careful not to overvalue them so much that losing them would destroy your inner citadel.
Enjoy the cup, but remember the cup is made of glass and is already broken.
A perfect way to frame it.
Which perfectly sets up the final, deeply practical exercise in the text, the practice of gratitude. The source notes that Marcus Aurelius spends the entire first chapter of his Meditations, again, the Emperor of Rome, a man with endless demands on his time, just meticulously listing the very specific things he is grateful for, having learned from the people in his life.
It is a profound, incredibly grounding list.
It really translates all this high-level theory into gritty, everyday action. Let's walk through some of the specific items the source highlights here.
Let's do it. It is a deeply practical inventory of character. First and foremost, he writes that he's grateful he realized he needed to work on his own character.
He knew he wasn't perfect.
He didn't assume that because he was emperor, he was perfectly formed. He recognized his own flaws.
He's also grateful for learning the government of his temper. I love that. He's struggling with flashes of anger just like the rest of us, and he's thankful for the mentors who showed him how to lock that down.
He lists developing a strong character, maintaining generosity, practicing charity, and crucially, keeping a sense of humor.
A sense of humor is vital. He also notes the immense value of investing in education, of enduring hard labor without complaint, and of actually working with his own hands.
For an emperor to value manual labor, to not view it as beneath him, is a striking testament to his desire to remain grounded in reality.
He is grateful for learning to want little, to actively cultivate a life that doesn't require constant external stimulation. And this next one is so relevant today. Learning not to meddle in the affairs of others and not to have time for slanderers or gossip.
Imagine how much peace, how much reclaimed time we would all have if we just completely stopped meddling in internet drama and ignoring office gossip.
It's a recipe for instant tranquility. Along those same lines, he values not busying himself with trifling things or wasting his cognitive bandwidth on frivolous matters.
He is also grateful for learning to write simply and directly, avoiding pretentious or manipulative language.
Now, this next one is massive, especially given his position. He expresses gratitude for learning to endure freedom of speech from others and for making peace with people he's fallen out with as soon as they are ready to reconcile.
That's huge.
Think about the mechanics of that. Enduring other people's free speech, meaning listening to people criticize you or say things you vehemently disagree with without losing your temper or using your power to silence them, is an absolute superpower.
It was his reality check against the sycophancy of the royal court. If he silenced his critics, he would only ever hear lies.
Right. He also mentions cultivating steadiness of purpose, maintaining self-control and not being distracted by shiny new things, and ensuring he doesn't let raw emotion cloud his judicial or personal judgment.
He's grateful for learning how to receive favors or gifts from friends graciously, without losing his self-respect or feeling like he's now in their debt, while also not appearing cold or ungrateful.
That's a very tricky social balance to strike.
He notes his cultivated indifference to superficial honors, statues, titles, applause, and he values learning a very specific modern lesson, not to constantly use the excuse "I'm too busy" to get out of doing things or fulfilling his obligations to his friend.
Oh, that one stings. We all use "I'm too busy" as a universal shield to avoid things we just don't want to do. He recognizes that as a failure of character.
It really is.
He's grateful for learning to actively listen to his friends' troubles without judgment, for showing his teachers genuine respect, and for showing his children unfeigned, unconditionally present love.
He strives to treat all people exactly as they deserve based on their character, not their class, possessing a genuine readiness to listen to anyone, plebeian or senator, who has anything valid to propose for the common good of society.
And finally, learning to refrain from nitpicking. He's thankful he learned to stop constantly correcting people's minor mistakes in grammar or logic just to show off his own intelligence. He learned to defer to true experts when necessary, and to display quiet dignity without an ounce of pretension.
When you really look at that list, when you synthesize those specific points, you see the true heart of this philosophy.
It's all about action.
The ultimate goal here isn't to sit on a mountaintop reciting complex psychological theories. It isn't about being perceived as a deep thinker. The goal is incredibly, relentlessly practical. It's about achieving everyday goodness.
It's about taking the theory and using it to be a better friend, a more patient parent, a more resilient worker, and a fundamentally better human being in the messy, frustrating reality of daily life.
Exactly.
So bringing this all together, what we've discovered today by looking through this 19-year scrapbook is that Meditations is not some rigid, impossible rule book for attaining divine perfection. It is a gritty survival guide for the human mind.
A survival guide.
It offers us these brilliant, test-driven mental crutches to reframe our interpretation of a chaotic world, to forgive the inevitable unkindness of our neighbors, to turn our daily obstacles into fuel for our own growth, and to radically, gently accept our own limits and imperfections so we can just dust ourselves off and get back on the path.
And that profound realization leaves us with a final, vital challenge drawn straight from the essence of this ancient text.
What's the challenge?
If you genuinely adopt the mental crutch we discussed earlier, the intense realization that the life you have lived up to this exact moment is now dead and gone, and that today, right now, is day one of a shortened, unexpected bonus life. How does that fundamentally change the very next action you take the moment you take your headphones off?
Wow.
How does it change how you speak to the next person you see? Furthermore, as the text explicitly commands at the very end of its long gratitude list, a command Marcus was writing directly to himself. How can you immediately stop talking about what a good person is like and just be one?
Stop talking about it, stop endlessly theorizing about it, and just be one. Such a perfect, challenging place to leave it.